3, 2, 1.
I told you before to be careful where you put your legs.
I was only trying to be helpful.
I can help myself.
What are you waiting for? Come on! Come on! What are you waiting for? Come on! Come on!
For 7 decades, Michael Caine has been among the world's most renowned and recognisable actors.
It was just what I needed. A 1-inch god with a 2-inch penis.
Star of classics like Zulu, The Man Who Would Be King, and The Cider House Rules.
It's a miracle no one was killed.
But also films that brought his career to the brink of complete implosion.
I made a mistake.
Somehow, he has always found a way back.
You're a big man, but you're in bad shape. With me, it's a full-time job.
In this epic podcast series, we will watch and review every Michael Caine movie, from the greatest hits...
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off!
...to the incredible misses.
You failed to maintain your weapon, son.
And take a deep dive into the life and work of one of the world's most recognisable film stars.
His name is Michael Caine, and no one will forget his name.
To understand how he has made the mark of Caine.
Well, you all settled in?
Record.
Alfie!
Lovely way to start. Hello and welcome to The Mark of Caine, our screaming dive bomb into the works of Michael Caine, watching every film in the great man's catalogue, from the direct hits to the misses to the ones sent spiralling into the sea in a ball of flame. My co-pilot, as always, is Stephen Black, Chief Reichs Air Marshal for the Mallow News Twitter feed. Do you like what I'm doing here?
I do, yeah. It's very on theme.
I have. It took all of 5 minutes to come up with that.
Excellent. Almost as long as Michael Caine's appearance in this fucking film. Yep.
Yeah, pretty much. We are talking about the Battle of Britain. This is our film today. We have come out of The Italian Job, which was quite a refreshing experience. I think we'll both agree. It was, after some of the stodge that we had to wade through. And now we're straight into World War II, as you were saying last week. Did you end up reading any World War II books afterwards?
Not really, no. I didn't figure it was that important. I kind of got the gist from what was going on here. Good guys, bad guys, planes, death. Don't think there's any more detail that I really need to know about this.
Fair enough, yeah. That's fair enough. I think, and there's plenty more people will fill in the blanks for you. I think you might find though that there are a bit more nuances to it than that, but I'm not sure that
the word today's word does not require nuance. It's not a time for nuance. That's what I like about living in today's modern world. I don't need nuance.
Oh God, I'm already worried about this conversation. Right, okay, we're out of the minis. We had the minis in The Italian Job, and we're moving into the Spitfires now for this detail.
Yes, we have left the warm sauna of The Italian Job, and we are now immersed in the freezing cold plunging pool of Battle of Britain.
Yes, historically accurate, but porridge stodgy.
Oh yeah, just because it's like this in reality does not mean you translate everything like it was to the screen. I mean, it's like Caine said in his own book, yes, when you're watching a movie and a man is going from point A to point B, you don't have to, show him getting up, showering, getting into his car, stuck in traffic until he eventually gets to his destination. Nobody wants to see that level of detail. And the same logic applies here. No one needs to see the sheer mundanity of the dogfights in this. It just really beggars all belief as to how anyone thought when they were looking at the rushes in this, where we've really made a really fast-paced, entertaining war movie.
That's pretty much it. And just before you, dear listener, decide that, what is the point in listening to this? This sounds terrible. Hang in there. There are some interesting bits and pieces, not least Caine's actual on-screen amount of time he's actually on screen. We'll come to that in a minute. Also, we're going to have a little look at, this is his last film of the 60s. So I think it's an apt time to recap on what we've had to sit through over the past little while. But before all that, let's roll trailer.
By the spring of 1940, Germany had virtually crushed every country on the continent. Now all that stood between them and the rest of the world was a handful of young British pilots in a handful of untried airplanes. short span of just a few months, Europe had been crushed in the steel fist of Germany. A stunned world watched as nation after nation was bombarded into submission.
What's left of your army abandoned its weapons at Dunkirk. You're defenseless and just playing for time. We can walk into Britain whenever we like.
Don't threaten or dictate to us until you're marching up Whitehall.
2 sections, scramble! Don't just stand there and get one up!
The Battle of France was over. The Battle of Britain was about to begin.
Oh, Christopher Plummer, I love you, but I don't want to work near you. Oh, Susanna York, why won't you move your job closer to where I work? Oh, I don't know why this needs to be a plot point in a fucking blockbuster movie. Do you, Christopher Plummer? I don't even know whether or not I should keep this English accent up or move into my more natural American accent.
You know what? I actually had to go back and because for most of the film, I didn't have a clue where he was from. And I went back and actually noticed, oh, hang on a minute. They've written it in big letters on the side of his arm. Canada.
Right. Okay, so that's fair enough. So all is forgiven, Christopher Plummer. They basically gave you the Jean-Claude Van Damme veto here, the get out of jail card for why you're not going to bother your hole doing another accent. famous Canadian and also Austrian captain Christopher Plummer.
Yeah. He's fought on both sides of this war already, and it's in the 60s. It's incredible. What versatility.
Oh, the man could he's amazing. He can play Kevin Spacey at the drop of a hat. You know that.
He can go from benevolent Nazi to flight tutor, just like that. It's just natural to him. No problem. Not even a kink in the accent.
I know. I don't want to be taking the piss out of Chris Plummer because he's more or less amazing in everything he does. But these are the kind of the early years for Christopher Plummer, and this was not a good performance.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I don't think there's anyone in this movie who's given it their all. I think this is very much an entire, I think this is very much the attitude of a cast who are on their home turf. It appears to be shot in the summer. It's warm out. We're mostly lazing around in chairs, waiting to hop into planes, pretend to take off. Then while all the stunt lads do the real work.
It's a very odd fit. Do you know what I thought actually on that point? I actually thought it was possibly, yes, you're right, but slightly different in that some of them thought, okay, this is the definitive telling of the Battle of Britain. We've spent 13 million quid on this. There's 100 odd airplanes in the sky. It's like the 35th biggest air force in the world right now as we're filming it. And we got to make this work. And somehow the whole thing just gets all stuck. There's a huge budget, mighty cast, all the names of the era there. Caine is he's on the podium, he's in the medal positions like in the opening credits, but we barely see him. We barely see him at all. And that says a lot about the whole movie, I think.
Yeah, it's one of these things that they were mad for in the 60s and 70s, were these huge ensemble casts with plenty of well-known faces, but that's all they were there for. They were there to sell tickets rather than to be an integral part of the story.
He has 4 screen appearances by my count in 2 hours and 11 minutes. His actual on-screen involvement amounts to 9 minutes 46 seconds, and that chunk of that is flight action scenes where you don't see him. It's just his plane flying about. So I mean, that's just bits. That's that 9 minutes 46 seconds that. It may sound ridiculous. I realized it about 2/3 of the way through the film. I went, he's not in this film. So that's why I went back, because I cannot believe, because he's, in fairness to him at this point in his career, he is getting it together. I mean, the Italian Job, he would have brought something to this film if they'd used him more. I think anyway.
Yeah, well, it's a very much pointy, shout, fly, and that's it. That's
and his dog. They give him a dog, which is more than they do for plenty of the others in terms of that's his emotional center, the dog.
Yeah, I don't understand the rationale behind this other than sell a ticket. Michael Caine's in it. Do your bit for Harry Saltzman and do your bit for Guy Hamilton, who you've worked with before. So maybe that's it. He felt he owed them.
That's it.
He felt he owed them enough to turn up, but not enough to actually put in a good performance.
Oh, it's incredibly wooden. It's incredibly wooden. Yep. We'll get to that in a second. Listen, I'm going to fly through this plot. For anybody who's interested in World War II,
do you even need to fly through the plot? The Battle of Britain. If people don't know the Battle of Britain, really, it's the Germans try to invade or to bomb the British by plane, and they don't succeed. And we're variously exposed, and we're exposed throughout the movie to like paper, like rice paper thin character sketches of people on both sides. More so, obviously, the British side, for some controversial reason, they didn't think they should be focusing on the Germans that much. And we get to visit with their personalities a little bit and their domestic life, I guess, in order to give them some kind of depth, but it doesn't work because the script is terrible and the performances are awful. So that's essentially it.
You know what? You're pretty much right. I mean, at the time and up to now, it is considered, a very historically accurate retelling of the Battle of Britain, right? It is very detailed. And I mean, in the same way, remember when we were talking about Funeral in Berlin, we were kind of saying, it was nice to see Berlin because that Harry Palmer film was filmed at the Berlin Wall on both sides, and it was a kind of little historical snapshot. Yeah. So the Battle of Britain does have that going for it. Like, they have Spitfires, and they had they were coming down with exports. Like, this is only what is it? 1940, 1969, so like 29 years after the Battle of Britain. So like, they were coming down with guys who knew what happened. So it's all very accurate. But even when I sketched out the plot, I realized I'm just sketching out the trajectory of the Battle of Britain. Like, the subplots are entirely superfluous to the movie, which is a huge problem. And your subplots, basically, that we'll probably chat about now, is Christopher Plummer and Susanna York as a married couple split by war. As like you said, she won't move to Scotland, blah blah blah.
But they're not split by war. They're not split by war. They're in the same fucking war. She's 2 towns over. That's essentially it.
No, but he's going to Scotland, and she's down the south of England, so they are kind of split, isn't that it? Anyway, look,
that's not really across the battle. Let's not fight. I mean, we've seen that from this movie that violence doesn't solve anything. Oh no, hang on, no. Actually, it completely proves the opposite. If anything, violence totally solves. Maybe we should continue to fight until there is one victor. Okay, let's start now. We'll start with the fucking fleshing out with the only thing we could really talk about is the interpersonal relationships, the backstory here, the domestics. This is where the emotional heft is supposed to come from. So when you delve into their lives, the emotional heft of when something bad happens or something tragic happens, you feel it more deeply, you feel it more empathically because you spent some time with them, and they're personable people to be over. That's completely fucking fails this. You've got Chris Plummer and Susanna York playing, as you say, this married couple. And again, it's all about, are you not going to move up to Scotland to be with me? And that's it. The timeline is so garbled. I mean, it's historically accurate, but you've no idea where the fuck you are in terms of like the Battle of Britain lasted around 3.5 months apparently. But there's no passage of time other occasionally than spending time with him and his wife in having a night of R&R in a hostel or wherever the fuck it is, and a bit of racy there. And then you've got out of nowhere, like, the subtlety in this movie is as subtle as a fucking hammer made of glass. Like, she's introduced to a new member of her team who's a real life war veteran who's had burns, and she basically has that usual thing. You can see, don't stare at his face, don't stare at his face, stares at his face. You can see somebody with such a facial disability is disturbing to her. Yeah, you might be, what would happen to her? How would she cope if somebody she loved was disfigured in the same way? Cut to, and I mean fucking immediately, cut to Chris Canada fucking maple syrup Moose Ahoy Plumber in the sky, getting fucking rat-a-tatted by one of the other Germans, fumbling to get out of the canopy, and he's terribly burned. And she's told afterwards, sorry, no. Best of luck with the marriage. Now you can go up and move next to him, but will you want to? Because we're referring here that you can't cope with. Why? Nobody fucking cares. It should be, if that was done, if you did that right, you should care awfully about. You could say, wow, I'm really invested in this relationship. I hope they can work out their problems. But oh no, adversity has thrown a fucking curveball at them. Will they be able to overcome this? But nah, just fucking tossed off hand as if it was a fucking cigarette butt, like.
Like, and also it also has the thing in common with the other subplots that the minute Plumber gets incinerated, we don't see him again. So that's gone, right? In the same way, we have Ian McShane is in it as well, and there's a little thing. He's from, I'm assuming, the East End of London, and he goes home on a bit of R&R, goes back to the church hall where everybody is gathered during an air raid. He goes away to help someone else, and the air raid or the church hall is bombed, and his entire family gets killed. He goes to stay with Robert Shaw, actually, who's his commanding officer, and they go away. That's the last of Ian McShane. We have no idea how it's.
This is Lovejoy. This is Al Swearingen from fucking Deadwood. This is a man, fucking Winston from fucking John Wick. This is a man with emotional range, heft, a fucking character actor par excellence, and he reacted in the same way to his wife and family dying as you'd imagine if he just found out that he lost to Bob on the Grand National.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
And I don't.
Anyway, onwards and upwards.
Exactly, and I don't buy stiff upper lip crap on this. Like this didn't need stiff upper lip. Like this needed a bit of teasing out. And to be fair to McShane, it's 1969, it's the start of his career, but you can see in between the lines like that there's a very good actor here that could do plenty with it. Which brings us on quite nicely to our man and he's 9 minutes and 46 seconds. Now I can't even remember the name of his character. I think it's Cranberry or Cranfield or something like that, right?
Oh, fucking Captain does very fucking little.
Doesn't matter. Caine, right? So Mick is sent up to an airfield to train up new pilots for rapid response, to get up in the sky as quickly as they can because the British are so outnumbered, like 4-1 or whatever it is. So he goes up. And that's it. His dog, like I said before, is his emotional center, it seems. He's whimpering when he goes up into the sky to battle, and he's whimpering when it's revealed that he's been killed 5 minutes there. I don't know about you, by the way. I had to go back and check had he been killed.
Had he been killed? I didn't even know that good.
He was shot
down.
Because
in that case, would it not, given the emotional connection between him and his dog, would that not have made the movie if after he's been killed, you just see the dog running towards the airship, jumping into the cockpit of a Spitfire, fucking taking off and going to take his revenge in the Jerry's? I would have paid cash money and this would have gone straight to 10 out of 10 for me if you just saw a literal dogfight. You got this fucking Labrador there with clearly, puppeted paws on the steering wheel of the Spitfire. Yeah, and like as he's gunning down Jerry, you just have these kind of flashbacks to Mick Caine throwing him a bone, or playing fetch in Hyde Park or what have you. Yeah, that would have been I would have been emotionally involved. It would have been rousing. Would have made for a much better ending rather than the damp, wet patch of a finale, which for some reason they decided to score like a silent movie. So there's no. The final dogfight in this movie is essentially just scored. There are no sound effects. There's no dialogue, and it is just dreadful. It's fucking flat and limp, and the score is it's one of the worst scores I've ever heard in any movie.
Over the top. It's like something from The Great Escape. It is a damn shame that they didn't get that dog up in the air, because we could have found out that his name was actually Mutt Spitfire, and they could have actually called the film Dogfight.
Yes. Dogfight: The Legend of Mutt Spitfire.
Yeah. Now we got a movie. Yeah. Now we got a show. Oh my God. Like Caine, like God bless him. God bless him. But we're back to the Zulu accent as well. We're back to Bromhead now at the Battle of Britain. He doesn't have a whole lot to say, but the bit he has to say, oh good Jesus, it's so incredibly wooden. And I mean, again, we say it at these moments, like we're coming from a place of love with this man. But I mean, it's just, phoning it in doesn't even come close to what happens here. No,
his pointing is off as well. Like his pointing is off in terms of emphasizing what he's saying. It's like it's out of sync. So his pointing game, which was, it was on point for a fucking pun, definitely not intended because it's so weak. For the Italian job, he's A game when it came to pointing. This now, it's like he's been relegated to, I don't know, insert the bad football league there. Fucking
I'll let you do
third division. Third division, was that a thing?
Oh good God, we're back in the 80s. It's fine. People will insert their own bad football league. It's fine. Carry on.
No, that was it. I was very disappointed all around in terms of the thing that you thought he'd gotten down. No, which is pointing. You think, right, he's going to bring that to every role now, and he's going to do it well.
You defense, just playing for time. Europe is ours. Europe is ours. You defense, just playing for time. Europe is ours. Europe is ours.
We saw some good pointing in the Megas. There was some brief good pointing in the Megas. I was brought up to another level in the Italian job, and then the pointing, as you said, was off again. That's it. That's it again, isn't it? Like we thought we were moving forward after the Italian job. I was really surprised because like I've tried to watch the Battle of Britain a few times. I have found it's just dull. Which seems incredible for a war movie of this scale, but it is dull. I was surprised at how poor Caine was in this. Now, I have to say, you wouldn't have? Would you presumably didn't have any expectation one way or the other for this movie? You wouldn't be really into this kind of stuff.
I hadn't, and to be honest, as soon as even with the opening, I kind of had some hope. I said, "Oh, right, okay, they're using real Spitfires. This looks authentic. Maybe it'll be good." And then when you realize that nobody's really giving it their all in terms of performances. This is really just a cameo fest. And then when you see the actual action scenes itself, and plane battles or dogfights or whatever we're going to put it are so hard to get right in the first place. All your characters are essentially wearing masks to cover their face, so expression isn't more likely taken out of it. So you're working really for the action is supposed to convey the drama as well. And it's just so poorly done. It's just like one indistinguishably grey-green plane firing on another indistinguishably grey plane, and somebody falls into the ocean, or somebody plane explodes, somebody parachutes into the sky. You don't know who the fuck it is, which side they're on, and you don't care. The explosions in this movie are so fucking bad.
They're very poor. Give it its 1969 and all, but they're still very poor.
But they're straight, like you're under no illusion that explosions are like some explosives being set off from underneath whatever's blowing up. Like a building will blow up, and then all of a sudden the car next to it will blow up. There's no that. It just makes no sense. When somebody gets shot in the plane, like there's a shot here where a German pilot gets shot in the face, right? Mm-hmm. And the blood is all over his face, but his goggles are fine. So it looks like a paint can is blowing up his face. So you're like, I don't know what they were thinking. It's just really turgid,
it's not good,
stodgy. Porridge, like you said.
I think what encapsulates really Caine's position in this film. I mean, he arrives in after it takes 25 minutes for him to appear, and he's gone about 85 minutes in. Like before he arrives, in the first 25 minutes, we meet Chris Plummer, Robert Shaw, Edward Fox, Ian McShane, Laurence Olivier is in there, Ralph Richardson is there, Andre from Fawlty Towers. The guy, do you remember the gourmet episode with the duck?
Yes.
The guy who runs the restaurant in Torquay, he's in it before Caine. Caine arrives roughly around the same time as Emmett from Keeping Up Appearances. Right? That's where he's placed it. It's just
Fred, the butcher from Coronation Street. Well, at some stages in this as well. And James Cosmo. James Cosmo is in this. It's unrecognizable.
Absolutely.
James Cosmo from every Scottish movie that's ever been made. James Cosmo, Highlander, fucking Braveheart.
Yeah, it's extraordinary the way it's. I mean, and it comes back to. I mean, you touched on it there. Like there are two fundamental problems here with a film like this. Number one, it's the difficulty in making people connect with kind of war movies in the air, because you don't have a clue what's going on. Like you said, the last battle scene is chaos. And maybe that's deliberate, but like at no stage do we know who's winning the battle, only that the Germans are getting awful bored with this. And in the last 5 minutes, it's like the filmmakers decide, oh shit, we got to wrap this up. Right, let's just have it that the Germans just stop. And that's it. That's it. And also, of course, the British start trusting Johnny Foreigner, the Polish pilots and the Czech pilots, and these lads who they didn't trust because they didn't speak English. But then when they sent them up into the sky and they got a couple of other... Look, if you're interested in the Battle of Britain, you'll go and find out about
We'll
what
just read
exactly
it up,
happened.
yeah.
You'll read it up.
Can we talk about the German?
Yeah, we'll talk about the Germans in a minute, but I just want to make one last point, right, about just the plot and things, because we don't want to spend too long on the movie, really. But just, there's a fundamental issue here with the telling of history around and not being able to tell a story. And this movie is a classic case of a very accurate piece of work, but that just doesn't it's just unable to tell a human story. Like, Ian McShane should have been the center of the movie. Caine should have been in it more. We didn't need Caine and Plummer, but like you said, it's probably just to sell tickets. But like, it's just a classic example of a really interesting subject, something that's really important, that collapses in a heap because the makers are unable to actually relate a human story at the center of it all, and the whole thing just falls apart.
Yeah, and I can say no human. There's no character arc here, which is what you need within the song. But like this, you need even just the most basic character starts from this point at the beginning of the film. Doings that transpire throughout the film and is at a different place by the end of the film. Something to kind of bring the viewer along, or the audience along with you.
And the thing is, right, we have watched two movies back to back now, The Italian Job and The Battle of Britain, that essentially have machines at the center of the story, right? So you have the Minis in The Italian Job and the Spitfires in this, right? But you look at The Italian Job and you're okay, it's a bit of fluff, but you are rooting for someone. You do care, mainly because Caine's performance is so good that he brings enough in The Italian Job that you care what's going to happen next. Like, I do care. And the Minis enhance the whole thing. It's a flip around in this. It's like they're the Bond. Like, it's the Bond production network have come into this and gone, you know what? We're just going to load a pile of money at effects and planes, and it's going to look so amazing. People are going to be blown away, and it won't matter that they don't have a clue what's going on the ground, and that there's no space for any of our good actors to actually flex their muscles because, oh, by the way, the script is awful.
Yeah. That's the worst thing. That's the worst thing about it, is that the script is awful. Like, the thing with The Italian Job is yes, Caine was fantastic and Caine elevates it, but the dialogue is excellent in The Italian Job. It's really, really, by and large, it's really excellent, and it really kind of skips along. Whereas you feel every single second in this movie, it just is, again, it's turgid, it's slow, it's a bad movie.
It comes back to the very basic thing. If you don't have a story, you don't have a movie. But anyway, you want to talk about the Germans?
Just quickly to talk about the Germans in this movie. The decision to go back with them. There's nobody there that you read. The only kind of continuity you have there, I suppose, is Hermann Göring, and he's underlings. I guess they're the only people that you see kind of regularly enough throughout. I would say, not want to be controversial, probably side that Hitler may have actually had a sense of humor was the fact that he appointed one of his least aerodynamic members of staff to the head of the Luftwaffe.
He was more of a Zeppelin, really, wasn't he?
He really was, and he had more costume changes than Mugatu in fucking Zoolander. He's just going to go on and he'd have a lovely pink number, then it's purple, and then it's white. He's very fashion forward.
He's that kind of guy.
This movie is important maybe for one reason only, and that is that I think this may be the first recorded use of the word shite-hawk in movies.
I think you might be right. It's certainly, you hardly ever hear it ever since, anyway.
So maybe the Battle of Britain deserves to be in the pantheon of cinematic greats, just because, shite-hawk is a great word. It
is a great word. And you know what? A very underutilized word, now that you say it, and now that I heard it in that movie. Yeah. Should use it more.
Yeah. Do you think that Guy Hamilton made the decision to have the bad guys all speak German just so international audiences knew who the bad guys were?
I think that was very helpful of him. I think Guy Hamilton, I know you're not a fan, but he did Funeral Berlin, didn't he?
He did.
Which we quite didn't mind. It was good.
Yeah, we liked it. Yeah. And he did some good Bond movies. But this is terrible.
It's awful.
My point was essentially just for all of the 60s and 50s and 40s, all Nazis were played by British actors. So I assumed that this would have been an issue that they prayed in their mind, make sure the bad guys are speaking German.
Well, there are one or two that you'll see popping up. There's, I think one of them appears in The Great Escape as the very nasty SS camp commandant that gets landed in at the very end.
As opposed to all the nice ones, yeah.
All the nice lads, yeah. Well, you see, let's not go down this road, but the camp commandant in The Great Escape was kind of a fairly amenable chap. But anyway, it's bad. It lost a pot of money at the time, made it all back over the years, but it lost like $10 million or something like that. The reviews were fairly lukewarm. You know, it was kind of absorbing rather than stirring the Evening Standard. The Americans didn't really dig it at all. Gene Siskel of Siskel and Ebert absolutely savaged it. Made the very reasonable point that the film has absolutely no dramatic interest in the other 93 minutes outside of the 40 minutes of action scene. And Siskel challenges the notion that it's worth seeing just for the aerial sequences. He's quite right. He actually in 1969 he put it on his list of 20 worst films that have been released that year.
That's fair.
He had a good line. He said the planes are the only good lines in the film, which I think is about right. What are we? God, our marks for Caine rather than the movie. Oh my God. Three. Yeah, I'd have to agree with you, and that's a stunning and unexpected drop at this stage in the game. I did not see this coming, but I would have to agree with you. And 3, by the way,
much like Herman Goring.
Look at the way you wrapped it all up at the end.
Oh, there we go. Wrap it up. Okay, next section.
60s Caine.
60s in retrospect.
Okay, so let's just go through a couple of categories. Okay, we won't delay too long on this.
No.
Best movie. My best movie in this decade for him, Italian Job.
Agreed.
Yeah. Worst movie for you?
Worst movie for me in, let's be fair, I guess patchy decade. Would that be fair to say? Patchy decade. Again, but the decade that introduced him to the world. Still Hurry Sundown. I don't think anything is left as bad a taste in my mouth as Hurry Sundown did, and Alfie did its fucking best. Alfie was trying to grab its diseased member out of its pants and force it down my gullet, but no, Hurry Sundown had already gotten there and was deep throating my fucking tonsils with how bad it was.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. But this is like I'm the same. This is like you're practically finishing my sentences. What's your best Caine moment from the decade of his movies?
The opening scene of $1 Billion Brain. It's my favorite moment, but it's probably not his best performance, but it's my favorite moment.
Remind me what is that?
That's where what's his fucking name? Colonel Plum or whatever his name is breaking into Harry's PI office that's over a sex shop. Yeah. Or Colonel Ross or whatever it is. Colonel Ross. It's a complete mess. And I liked how that was the kind of the antithesis to the opening sequence of the Ipcress Files. See how far kind of Harry Palmer's character had fallen. So I like that. Like that's what I was taking for best moment. Did you mean Caine's personal best moment?
No, I what you've did there, and again, we're practically finishing each other's sentences here. I actually picked the supermarket scene from the Ipcress File where he's walking through the supermarket with Ross, trying to. They're actually improvising the scene. And they're trying to kind of conduct a confidential conversation about spy business while while crashing their trolleys into others. And Harry Palmer's doing it. He's getting his mushrooms in a can off the shelf and so on. Great scene. The worst moment involving Caine for me. Back to Hurry Sundown. It's got to be the kiss with Jane Fonda, where the imprint of Caine's face is left on Fonda's face for probably a week. It's like he's trying to, what did I say? I think on the episode, it was like he's trying to suck a golf ball out of a hose. It's just awful.
Yeah, for me, that was up there, but I went with the scene where he's seducing Vivian Merchant by the river in Alfie. It's just gross. It's just rank. Just the whole thing, the vibe and everything,
Yeah, it was terrible. The biggest surprise, and what I meant by this was like something that you didn't expect when watching these Caine movies from the 60s.
Well, the overall thing is I didn't expect that in the decade that has defined him, that has left an indelible mark in his career in terms of the Harry Palmer look and the Italian Job, is that his output would be so patchy.
Yeah.
But in terms of the biggest surprise, I think for me was that, having heard over the years how bad The Magus was that to find out that it was actually watchable without being so bad that you couldn't watch it,
It's like, again, you're actually finishing my sentence here. Like I've a word written down here, vaguely watchable. I mean, that was the biggest surprise for me as well. Like, it's nowhere. It's not as bad as Hurry Sundown. It's not as bad as The Wrong Box. I would nearly watch it before the Battle of Britain. I'd have to think about
I would
that
as
one.
well. And again, it's not as bad as I would have thought. Deadfall is a much worse movie than Majors. I can't believe that they say. Oh, I guess the expectation around because the book was such a bestseller and there was such high expectations about the book being made into a movie. I think that's what the issue with the Majors. Nobody kind of really expected Deadfall or anything like that. It was really G'd up for it to be a success or what have you. But I think the expectations were so
low,
considerable for the Majors that everybody was so considerably disappointed when they ended up watching it.
No, it has to be said that it is a god awful film. Like, I mean,
don't be under no illusion. This is a turd. Like,
I suggested this category when we were putting this together because you just couldn't get away from misogyny in these movies in the 60s. So, like, the ultimate misogyny moment for me, the ultimate misogyny moment again was Vivian Merchant in Alfie. Her character has had an abortion, and to calm her down, Caine's character Alfie slaps her. I just couldn't get. I that has haunted me. That scene. Since.
You can't. I can't argue with that. That for me is just that is the fucking cherry on the shit trifle of moments of misogyny throughout the 60s.
There's a lot of them. And the biggest letdown for me, kind of, I suppose, the reverse of surprise, the kind of the negative for me was the Battle of Britain performance. I really did not see that coming, that he'd be so detached from the whole thing. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, for me, the biggest letdown was $1 Billion Brain. Like I said, going back to the, if you go back to the podcast when we were talking about it, it's not a bad movie, but it is a bad way to leave Harry Palmer in terms of quality. So having kind of The Icarus File being so good, Funeral in Berlin being good, this was kind of, I mean, as with most trilogies, I guess this is kind of a real letdown from that perspective.
Yeah, and the very, very last thing, the weirdest Caine moment, I couldn't separate two. They're both from $1 Billion Brain. At one point in the movie, he extricates himself from a bath of dead bodies and kind of brushes it off like he's like just taking the suds off himself from an actual bath. And also in that show, he goes into a sauna at one stage, like it's in Helsinki or whatever, and he's wrapped, he's swaddled in fur, goes into a sauna, doesn't sweat, not one bead comes off that man. Weird. That's too weird for me. I can't be taking that.
No, that's fair. For me, the weirdest moment was when he throws a baseball in Hurry Sundown. So there's a scene in Hurry Sundown where he's trying to basically inveigle himself into the good graces of his cousin's kid, and he brings him a baseball and a baseball glove, and they have a very curtailed game of catch, which I say was as a result of Otto Preminger having to go through about, I'd imagine, 60 takes of Caine throwing the ball. And I don't know how you describe it, but if we go back and we shut the door on the de-gayification of Michael Caine, but if you were to go back on all the hard work they put into de-gaying, as they say in their words, not ours, Michael Caine, that they allowed someone throw a ball who would appear as if he was trying to bat a fly away with a feather duster. It was one of the worst things. You could clearly say, you could clearly imagine Otto Preminger going, right, we're not, okay, this whole catch thing is not going to work. Just send the boy around the back and he's going to play with the baseball around the back there because there's no way we're going to be able to get Caine. It's just really weird.
We are some years away from Escape to Victory, and already by Hurry Sundown, you're thinking he's not really the sporty type. That is the 60s.
60s in retrospect.
I feel like we're walking away from 60s Caine. Actually, do you know what it's a little bit like? It's a little bit like a pilot in the Battle of Britain having kind of crash landed. He's got hit a few times. He's kept it in the air. He's crash landed, not sure whether the Spitfire will be able to be repaired. But I tell you what, he gets out and the pilot is freaking shaken after the experience.
Yeah, and he's the plane's crash landed in the minefield.
Yeah, and it's up to somebody else to go get it. Because I'm not going back there. I'm not watching those movies again. Hurry Sundown? I don't think so. I don't think so. So now, headlong into the 70s, Caine is moving to Hollywood. might be starting to do a little bit of tippling. I don't want to sort of
Hooray!
go too far ahead of myself. You know, maybe film choices are kind of up and down, but we'll see. For the time being, our next movie is another war. He's in a kind of bit of a war thing at the moment. So next one is Too Late to Hero. So we swap the White Cliffs of Dover for the steaming jungles of the Far East.
Getting ourselves killed isn't going to make any difference to anybody except us.
I'm assuming this is a stirring tale about the importance of punctuality.
It is, exactly. Synchronize your watches.
Yes, I understand this to be anecdote-heavy period for Michael Caine in terms of how much he really loved going to the Philippines and shooting in location.
Really?
Yes.
I have no memory. The only knowledge I have of this film, which to be fair is pretty substantial because I've watched it about 20 million times. We had, as kids, it must have been on late one night on BBC or something. We taped it, but we only taped the second half. So I've watched the second half of this movie so many times that myself and my younger brother pretty much knew the script. And let me tell you now that there's a piece of music going to be playing in your head after you watch this film for many days, and it goes something like this. It goes. So you've got that to look forward to.
That sounds an awful lot like in Snoopy when the adults are talking.
All right, let's go into the 70s. Let's go watch Too Late to Hero. It's actually very easy to find online. If anybody who's listening now wants to come back and listen to the next episode, you haven't seen Too Late to Hero, go have a look. It's Michael Caine, Cliff Robertson is in it as well, and a bunch of British actors who are in all these war movies. Stephen, thanks for everything again, and thanks for holding my hand through the 60s.
Anytime. Let's leave the 60s behind us. Let's leave the embers of our burnt bras and put on those bell bottoms. Put on those denim bell bottoms and stride hand in hand into the 70s with the crusted remnants of cocaine in under our nostrils, flag of the cider, and let's look at the wonderful banquet of movies that Caine has lined up for us. And as usual, if you feel like watching Too Late to Hero, go away, watch it. Hit us up. Oh God, hit us up. Yeah, I'll go with that. Hit us up on the twits at Market Caine 2. And
it's all over.
With any questions you'd like to ask us about Too Late to Hero, and we do our best to answer them. Until then, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, take it easy. We'll see you in the 70s.
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks for listening. Make sure to like and subscribe. Maybe leave a comment. Only nice ones, though. Mean comments will make Alfie cry, and no one wants to see that. The Michael Caine podcast is written, researched, and presented by Stephen Black and Michael Foley, and edited by Andrew Foley. Music is composed by Stephen Black. If you'd like to get in touch, you'll find us on Twitter at Mallow News and at Michael Caine 2. And if you enjoyed this episode, you'll find all the rest wherever you get your podcasts. The Mark of Caine is a Mallow News 2 Cubes production. See you next time.